We're going to learn how to make a centered zipper. So take your two 4x10 pieces of fabric that you've already serged down the edge of, and you're just going to mark about 2 inches from the bottom here. You really only need to do it on one layer. And then just pin your two pieces together. Make sure that your pins are perpendicular to your edge. That makes it easier to either sew over or take out as you go. You're going to want to baste the top part of your seam, so make sure that you crank your stitch length up as high as it'll go. Mine stops at 5. You don't have to backstitch this part. So just baste normal 5/8 inch seam. My zipper foot's already on here. It doesn't matter if it's on there or not right now. So you can either stop and take your pins out or just keep sewing over the pins carefully until you get down to your mark that you made. Okay, so I got to my mark. Now I want to flip it back to my 2.5 regular stitching. So you can just turn your machine off and back on to do that, or crank it down to 2.5. Make sure you backstitch here. Just sew to the bottom and then backstitch. Then you want to press your seam open. Once you've gotten your seam pressed open, you can go ahead and get your zipper ready to put in. We are using just a regular 7-inch polyester zipper. If it says invisible here, then that's not the kind that we're using for this particular zipper application. But you can just go ahead and take it out of the package, take the staple off, and open it up. If your zipper is longer than 7 inches, that's okay. I can show you how to make a thread stopper for it, and we can cut it shorter. So mine is 7 inches, and so you're going to open it up and line up the zipper stop here at the bottom up with your marking that you made just a minute ago. I do need to tell you a few things about your zipper to remind you, because I'm going to be talking about these parts in just a second. The fabric part is your zipper tape, and the little metal parts at the top and bottom are your zipper stops. The little tab here is either a pull or a zipper tab, and then the teeth are either called teeth or coils. So you're going to place your zipper tape onto your seam here. Just be sure that you line up the top of your zipper tape with the side that you basted rather than the part that you sewed, because we're pretending like this is our seam in our garment. So you want to make sure you're doing this to the basting part. You're just going to line up the coils with your basted seam here, and only go through one layer of your fabric on your seam allowance, but line up at the top, and you're just going to pin it in place, making sure that your teeth are lined up with that center seam here, and just pin perpendicular all the way down. Now's the part where you definitely have to have your zipper foot on, so go ahead and get that ready. And you're going to start out with basting, so set your machine to the longest stitch length again, and make sure that your needle is over to the side. I like to put my zippers in this way with the zipper foot off to the right side, so if you're doing it this way, then follow along and just move your needle over to the left, out of the way. because if you don't, your needle could come down and hit your foot and then just snap off and break. So we don't want that to happen. So just this part, you don't have to backstitch because remember, basting is a temporary stitch. So we're just using it to hold our zipper in place while we sew it on the outside in just a moment. So we're just gonna sew the zipper tape down the middle with our basting stitches here just to keep it in place for now. See, my zipper is getting kind of away from the center here, and that's not what I want, so I might go back and fix that. You want it to be nice and lined up like that. Okay, I fixed this so that now that the teeth are lined up better with the center here. Now what you want to do is zip your zipper up. Just make sure the little tab is facing up towards the top. That makes it easier to open in just a minute. You're going to flip your fabric over. So now we're looking at the outside of our garment, and you want to put pins in this way across the teeth. So you're straddling the teeth with your pin, and just make sure you're going perpendicular again. And your last pin should end just under your zipper stop here. You should be able to feel it with your finger. So you want to get that right under there because you want to make sure that your seam is closed up right there. So the next thing I like to do is to take 1/2 inch wide Scotch tape. This is not the normal width. The normal width is a little bit wider than this, but you can buy this at Target or whatever. And just take enough so that you are going to be able to go from that last pin all the way to the top of your fabric here. And we're going to use this as our stitching guide for sewing the outside perimeter of the center zipper application. So just line this up in the very center as best as you can. This will come off in just a minute once we're finished sewing. So you just want to make sure that you're not going to catch your tape in your stitching. You just want to go around the outside of the tape. And mine's a little bit long here, so I'm going to trim it off. Okay, so you want to make sure your machine is set back at the regular stitch length, which is 2.5 for this machine. So you're going to backstitch here at the top, follow the tape all the way down, pivot at your corners, and then head back up, and then backstitch again. So we're just going to keep pivoting all in one motion. So you want to make sure your needle is as close to the tape as you can. And it might be a little bit tricky, so sometimes mine doesn't turn out so great, and I just undo this last step and redo it to make it neater. And I'm purposely using this color thread so that you can see my stitches, but on a normal garment you'd want to use as close as possible matching thread so you don't see it. So when you get here, you know you need to pivot at the corner. I cut it a little crooked, but crank your needle down into your fabric, pick up your presser foot, pivot, and then keep sewing. I'm going to run into my tape here, but that's okay. So you can hand crank the last stitch or so you can get it as close to the very edge of the tape as you can, and then head back up to the top. And then backstitch. Clip up your threads so it's nice and neat. You can take your tape off now because you're finished with it. That turned out pretty good. It could be a little better. But all you need to do now, and I should have backstitched a little further up here, but this is just for practice, so that's okay, is you just need to undo your basting stitches here, and you can undo the original basting stitches on this side or not. It's kind of up to you if you want to or not. Technically, you should. And then you should be ready to go. Okay, so now I've taken all my stitches out with my seam ripper, and my zipper is ready to go. And you can see that the zipper stop is right down there at the bottom, which is exactly where we wanted it. You have to be careful when you're pinning right there, because if you catch the zipper stop under your needle, you're going to break your needle. So you've just got to be careful where you get that pin exactly under there. Another thing I wanted to mention is that some people cut the top of their zipper off before they put it on, which you're not supposed to do that. It's just going to come unraveled. It is like this on purpose. The way they make them is so that the zipper stop is about 5/8 of an inch, which is our home sewing standard seam allowance from the top, which is great because then if you're sewing a facing or a waistband or anything up here at the top, that is going to get tucked under. And so then our zipper stop is going to be right at the very, very top of our seam. And sometimes your zipper may not want to close all the way right there, and so we usually put something like a hook and eye there to kind of just close that last little gap. But this is how you do a centered zipper application.